Okay. Yeah. So first of all, everyone, welcome to ISC2 Alberta chapter. So this is the last week and of our Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We know things like that is not just because it's Awareness Month doesn't mean it's just a day thing. So it's something to show you guys the different aspect of cybersecurity. And today, this is the last week, and we have our very honored guest who talk about presentation on Arctic and subarctic cybersecurity, securing the North through Indigenous partnership. So his presentation is on the race for Arctic's dominance intensify as nations compete for untapped resources, strategic positioning, and technology advancement in the far north. New cold colonialism. This presentation examines how Arctic and subarctic region are vital for future sovereignty and development, assesses the current state of digital infrastructure and cybersecurity capabilities, and demonstrate why indigenous perspectives are essential for success. So then we conclude that meaningful collaboration with indigenous community is not only inevitable, but fundamental to the building resilience and sustainable cybersecurity framework in this critical region. And so I'd like to introduce the presenter of this excellent topic, interesting topic, is Mehrdad. Pardon my pronunciation, Safaei, ENG, MPP, and PhD candidate. So Mehrdad is a policy analyst specializing in digital governance and artificial intelligence. Following his undergrad degree in electrical engineering, they pursue graduate studies in public policy at the University of Saskatchewan. Mehrdad has collaborated with various provincial and federal organizations, including the Saskatchewan Ministry of Highways, the Canada School of Public Service, and Indigenous Services Canada. They are an active member of IEEE and Engineers for the Profession E4P, engaging regularly with artificial intelligence and cybersecurity working groups. Currently, Mehrdad is pursuing a Doctor of Philosophy degree at Memorial University in Newfoundland, focusing on preserving indigenous languages of the Arctic and subarctic region of Labrador through the development of large language models. So they also serve as research assistant at the Johnson Shoyoma Graduate School of Public Policy Digital Governance Lab. So Mehrdad's research interests include digital citizenship and cyber security, citizens' digital footprint, indigenous governance, encompassing indigenous technology, health, and education, the application of large language model with government, smart cities, evidence-based decision-making, and data analysis, technology and innovation policy, open governance, and finally, digital governance. Welcome, Mehrdad. Take it away.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you, Vincent, for this great opportunity and this two chapter, Alberto, for giving me a chance to present and represent the importance of Norse and new emerging conflicts in the world. Um, Thank you for the introduction. Before we go through the presentation, I like to. Well, there's a picture that I showed from the beautiful lush of the North in Yukon and the pictures there. Before I start my presentation, I want to respectfully acknowledge that I'm delivering this presentation from what is now known as Labrador, Canada, and it's 9:30 now here. It's a bit my lamp is on, that's why I'm a bit halo effects here. The traditional and unceded territories of Inuit and Innu. We recognize them as the traditional stewards of this land, and their deep knowledge is fundamental to any meaningful discussion about security, stewardship, and resilience in the North. So with that now land acknowledgement, I would like to give my presentation today and talk about Arctic and subarctic cybersecurity, securing the North through indigenous partnership. Today, I will discuss why Arctic is important, what we see at the Arctic, what's the current status, what kind of security and cybersecurity we're talking about, and what we could do if we want to implement further cybersecurity collaborations when it comes to the Arctic and subarctic regions. I like to start by saying that what happens in the Arctic won't stay in the Arctic anymore. That old Cold War paradigm has been shattered. The Arctic is no longer a frozen remote frontier. It is new front line of great power competition. My presentation today will prove that sustainable security and national sovereignty in the high north depend fundamentally on building integrated resilience through a genuine indigenous partnership. Why the urgency? Seven of the eight Arctic nations are now in NATO, and Russia and China are coordinating strategic military patrols. Furthermore, Indigenous residents govern vast territories. In Canada alone, 40% of the land where critical infrastructure operates is under Indigenous jurisdiction. We must secure the North with not just for its inhabitants. Its security for everyone resides in Canada. The Arctic is formally defined as the area north of the Arctic Circle, 66 degree 33 north latitude. More particularly, ecologists define it as the region where the average temperature for the warmest month, July, remains below 10 degrees Celsius. It roughly follows the northern tree lines. The subarctic is the region just below the Arctic. It is characterized by long, cold winters and critically by presence of permafrost, subsoil that is permanently frozen. This frozen is ground in turning stable assets into catastrophic liability for infrastructure. So permafrost, it's important because permanently the ground is frozen. I remember when I was in Northwest Territories and talked to Yaktall, you could see infrastructure like water pipes. Everything is above the ground because we have permafrost. So we need to keep that in mind for any infrastructure, like physically, before we go to a cyber world, that what kind of structure are we um, uh, talking about in here. The Arctic is home to over 4 million people. I want to say out of this 4 million, 2 million are in Russia and Russian state. That's important to keep in mind. The primary state actors are the eight Arctic states, which includes Canada, the US, Russia, and the Nordic nations. The recent accession of Finland and Sweden to NATO means seven of these eight countries are now part of the alliance. Crucially, these are approximately 500,000 members of indigenous people who belong to 40 distinct ethnic groups. Six of the international organizations, such as the Inuit Council, hold permanent participant status in the Arctic Council, where we recognize them as right holders and territorial governors. The geopolitics urgency is driven by economics. We call it the cold rush. So historically, Arctic region, based on the laws, any part that can be proven that is part of the coastal land belongs to the country's territories as the ice melted. The rest of the region is belonging to everyone and the future generations. Now, considering the recent attack by the Russians to the Ukraine territory and Ukraine attacks to a lot of Russian bases belonging to the Arctic region, we could see this is becoming a conflict zone literally as of today. Now, the melting ice exposes access to resources worth trillions, including estimated 90 billion barrels of undiscovered oil and over 1,600 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. Parenthesis. Russia, 20%, almost 20% of the Russian oil that is exported and extracted comes from the Arctic region. 80% of the gas also comes from the Arctic region. I hope I didn't say it the other way and I said it correctly. Um, One more importantly for technology, Greenland poses 25 of the 34 critical raw materials identified by the European Union, including large deposits of graphite, vital for military and advanced battery industries. Current industry includes resources extraction, shipping, fishing, and critical science research. However, the future prospectivity depends on shifting away from this old extractive model to building stable, knowledge-based economics anchored in local innovation and education. So kind of like what happens regarding the resources and others. Now, um, the melting map. What's happening with the climate change and the new maritime? Climate change is the primary enabler of strategic competition. The Arctic is warming approximately 4 times faster than the global average. The melting is making northern sea routes commercially viable. So, for those who are not familiar with NSR or Northern Sea Routes, I show it on map here, the blue one here. It literally 50% shortcut that the current route system that connects especially China with the Europe, and they have to go and passes a lot of strategic bottlenecks. And we're talking about this blue route here, Northern Sea Routes. It is 40 to 50% shorter than the traditional Suez Canal route, leading to projection of heavy shipping traffic and remarkable shifts in trade flows between Asia and Europe logistics from reduced journey durations and current lack of traditional piracy threats. However, this relies entirely on secure digital systems like vessel traffic services, VTS. A successful cyber attacks on BTS is the most significant threat to the North and to our northern sea routes. An economic weapon. This could be an economic weapon that could cause mass maritime disruption. Now, some statistic here why this is becoming up for our next 5 to 10 years. Since 1979 to 2024, 2.6 million kilometer meter ice has been melted. This is almost the size of Argentina. And we're projecting by 2030 to 2035, we will have we will have summers with no ice in the Arctic and subarctic region, which provide the North Sea routes water facilities. The old high North low tension era is over. Russia has reopened and rebuilt over 475 military bases along northern borders. China is deepening military cooperations with Russia, including joint strategic bomber and Coast Guard patrols near Alaska. Against these backdrops, indigenous leaders view the current extraction boom and security builds up as new cold colonialism, a process of new extractivism that enhances state control and disposes indigenous peoples from their land and livelihood without consent. This perpetuates historical injustice and it is critical point of friction for security frameworks. That's one of the stations that the Russians has built, and recently, just over the last decade, they have shipped a new nuclear station to power a lot of citizens that they live in there and increasing in habitat. The Arctic is vital for space missions. Polar orbiting satellites are polar orbiting satellites for mapping, surveillance, and providing data transmission for internet, weather, and military applications to the high north. To maximize contact with these assets, high latitude ground stations are strategically positioned such as the North Pole Ground Station in Alaska, latitude 64, 48 degrees north. This station supports functions like data downlink and command uplink. Launches are important for establishing these polar orbits. Critically, these isolated assets are single point of failure. The world's largest satellite ground station at Svalbard, Norway, depends on just two fiber optics cable to the mainland. Here I put a picture of it, what we're talking about and what's the scale of it. So, a couple of things I want to add mention here is whenever we talk about the geopolitics, this is a strategy because whenever a nation, we have seen China or Russia, they threat to shut down the satellite, a strategic position that gives you a large window to shut down satellites, or if you want to counter missiles from them, is from the Arctic and subarctic region. So it's strategically very important. Also, if you follow the news regarding military drills, recent largest drills or shutdowns or fighter jets interact, you will see it happens in Arctic and subarctic region, and that's for a reason of America. The only way that America could be accessible, left and right, are two oceans. Literally impossible. The only way comes to the north and Arctic Circle. That's why a lot of hypersonic missiles that you could see that could target any major cities in America within 60 minutes of launch from Russian territories within the Arctic. So that's kind of like the ground we're talking and how it's important for connectivity with the space. The Arctic approaches remain the most likely avenue for advanced missile attacks against North America, including operational hypersonic missiles that can strike major US cities in less than 60 minutes. This is why modernization of the early warning radar systems, successors to the historical distance early warning line, is required. Aviation also uses the Arctic for crucial polar routes which offer shorter great circle navigation between continents. So a lot of commercial flights, you're aware if you fly to Europe, you across the Arctic. Cybersecurity is prominent here. The primary risk is not system failure, but the manipulation of radar sensor data to create false positives or mask an incoming attack which would paralyze defense command system in the brief window of time available. So consider a lot of hypersonic missiles or something like that. The response window is critically slower and shorter. Any disruption that could happen within the security of the systems or from the detection and attraction, considering the satellites within the orbit and the window of response is very short and brief here. The vast majority of global internet traffic, nearly 99%, flows through vulnerable undersea cables. Subsea fiber cables are critical for high-speed backhaul, enabling defense systems, ground station, and commercial communications. So majority of physical cables that there are a lot of them around the Nordic countries, connect them together and others, physical cables. New cables are planned, including the long-term intention to eventually link Tokyo to London via the Arctic. Documented sabotage is a major concern. At least nine cables were cut in the Arctic and Baltic regions between late 2023 and early 2025 in suspected hybrid attacks. These cables also face unique physical risk from ice score and winter conditions can make repairs infeasible for weeks. So, in considering the shifts that we have with the current AI application infrastructure and interconnectivity with the commercial use of the satellites, such as Starlink or other competitors within Amazon that we see, it's important to understand this strategically of what kind of cybersecurity we're talking when it comes to the North, and in case that we lose the physical connectivity under the seabeds through the lines, we're going to the communication to the satellite, what kind of security we may need on that end. The physical reality is compounded by climate change. Permafrost throw affects 70% of current Arctic infrastructure, threatening the stability of roads, runways, and buried cables. Extreme weather events increase the risk of physical damage. This creates a vicious cycle. Climate damage forced rush repairs, which are often done without proper security oversight, creating new vulnerabilities that adversaries can then exploit. This illustrates how a physical climate-driven fault can trigger a catastrophic system digital resilience failure. New environment needs new solution when it comes for cybersecurity in harsh environments such as Arctic and subarctic. Organizations in the North face sophisticated threats from ransomware groups, hacktivists, and state-sponsored adversaries. Russia and China are assessed as the most sophisticated and active. Threats are highly opportunistic. Phishing attacks surged 150% in April 2024, strategically coinciding with major global conflicts. This confirmed Arctic organizations are fully integrated into the global threat matrix. The most frequent attack vectors involve identity and access management, or we know it as IAM, unauthorized credential usage, and account takeovers. And account and takeover accounts for 7 of the top 10 indicators of compromises. Recent analysis reveals a massive systematic failure in basic security hygiene. The exploitation of known vulnerabilities for which patches exist outnumbers the explanation of zero-day vulnerabilities by a factor of 7.5 times. This is what we call patch debt. The tyranny of distance makes sending specialized technical personnel to remote radar sites or power facilities prohibitively expensive, leading to widespread unpatched system. Furthermore, 45% of security alerts occurred outside regular working hours, demanding 24/7 security operations since physical security is constrained. Robust identity and access management system are a de facto security prominence for northern operations. Now, who is in charge of Arctic digital security? This is complicated. The Arctic Council, the main forum for cooperation, explicitly excluded military security from its mandates. This creates a fundamental governance gap. When a hybrid attack targets dual use infrastructure, the incident falls into jurisdictional gray zone, inhibiting coordinated incident response and information sharing between civilian and defense bodies like NATO North. This fragmentation increases systematic risk across the entire region. A severe digital divide exacerbates security challenges. In some indigenous communities in Alberta, 80% lack proper high-speed internet. Residents face extraordinary costs. Equivalent residents have reported paying up to 1,200 monthly for inferior connectivity. The lack of connectivity limits access to telemedicine, education, and even traditional harvesting coordination. Cyber literacy initiatives must be culturally relevant, working with elders to indigenize materials using storytelling and focusing on relationship building rather than imposing external technical training within the communities. The history of Arctic involves forced displacement, broken territories, and extractive research, all forms of colonialism. The current research boom and data extraction risk perpetuating new cold colonialism if indigenous governance and sovereignty are not respected. We must, if new cold colonialism, if indigenous governance and sovereignty are not respected, we must move beyond historical harm. Projects might adhere to principles of self-determination affirmed by United Nations Declaration on the Right of Indigenous Peoples. Cybersecurity initiatives must actively support indigenous self-determination rather than reinforce patterns of external control over their lands and data. Now, partnership is not optional. It is a strategic imperative. Indigenous communities are the right holders and governors of the territories where crucial infrastructure, such as cabled, radar, satellites, ground stations, must deploy. They control physical access, provide the essential cooperation for maintenance, and serve the first responders to physical failures. Attempting to secure the North without this partnership creates security blind spots that adversaries will inevitably exploit. This partnership is the foundation for operational legitimacy and effectiveness. Indigenous knowledge systems are an irreplaceable security capability. The function are the distributed sensor network across vast territories too large for technology to monitor alone. For example, Inuit assess sea ice safety using texture, color, sound, detecting changes that scientific instruments often miss. The sophisticated real-time pattern recognition provides continuous anomaly detection, co-production of knowledge, which integrates indigenous knowledge system with modern technology, is the pathway to reduce both climate-related physical risk and cyber vulnerabilities. All security frameworks must adhere to Indigenous Data Sovereignty Principle, or the OCAP framework. Ownership, control, access, possession, affirm. Indigenous jurisdiction over community information. Globally, the CARE principles, collective benefit, authority to control, responsibly, ethics, guide data management, and guide the data management. The Sami Council builds upon this with the Sami ownership and data access known as SODA principles explicitly recognize the fundamental right of ownership. In cybersecurity, this means communities must have the authority to control network traffic data and security incident data about their communications. Success models exist and must be replicated. The Yukon Shared Pathways Network saw 13 First Nations corporations gain ownership of fiber assets, leading to higher community engagement, superior maintenance, and lower vandalism. This is the power of ownership. We must also achieve a spectrum sovereignty following the model of the New Zealand Maori spectrum agreement, which granted control over the fundamental resources needed for digital economic participation. These initiatives build local capacity and sustainability. As of 2025, we face sophisticated threats exploiting systemic weaknesses, patch debt, climate-driven physical failure, and a governance gap. Solution is the co-production of security. This requires implementing a roadmap that transforms colonial relationship into partnership. Key actions. replicate ownership, expand successful models such as Yukon across the north throughout the country, enforce government, establish an indigenous-led cybersecurity working group within the Arctic Council to coordinate incident response protocols, and number three, invest in indigenous knowledge system fusion. Prioritize systems that integrate indigenous knowledge with technological monitoring. Security achieved through exclusion, not security. Security achieved through exclusion is not security at all. The North cannot be secured without those who have always called it home. Partnership is not optional here. It is foundational to building resilient, legitimate, and sustainable security in the critical region. Well, I hope that this brief presentation proved that the old saying, what happens in the Arctic stays in the Arctic, is absolutely dead. In fact, the accelerating climate crisis, cope with the geopolitical race for critical resources and strategic routes like northern sea routes, means the North is now the world's most contested digital battle space. And as a policy analyst, with an engineering background specializing in digital governance and currently pursuing my PhD at Memorial University, I'm focusing on develop up oh this was makes it. I'm focusing on developing and applying large language models to create the next generation social media apps in order to preserve indigenous languages and culture of this very region. My work sits directly at this intersection of technical vulnerabilities and human resilience. I am incredibly passionate about translating my research into action, and I'm actively looking forward to connecting and collaborating with those who are willing to forge new partnerships within Indigenous communities, particularly those who have programs that can help to build this necessary sovereign resilience and secure the North. Please feel free to contact me on my LinkedIn profile or via the email listed on the website so we can work together on this mission. Cheers. Guess we come to end of my presentation. My apologies if I read the flu very bad. I didn't put my glass in. I think that was a mistake.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Yes. I look at the bear. It looks like it can eat a whole human and still be half full. So yeah, no, that's really good, really interesting. Just wondering, yeah, does anyone here has any questions right now? Or maybe I can start first and ask you say lack of this communication or for patching all that. I just did a quick comparison between Starlink available in Banff, Alberta, and Iqaluit up north. Actually, it's not too bad. It's I think it's just about 20 to $30 more in the Arctics, and
Mhm.
actually the performance is like about 20 megabytes faster than Banff. So looks like internet access in the north is no longer an issue. So
Yes, exactly. So that's
yeah.
a very good touch to start this discussion. So it used to be up until now recent because it's very recent. Just over the last year, some of the materials I've been using following was for previous presentations. Now within the Arctic region, especially since the war that has been launched, Starlink has been available to the region. So a lot of communities you go, people have a Starlink. The cost of it, I know, is about $175 amount, depending on which package they use. The highest one is about $250, so dramatically became cheaper. But previously, I mean, if you don't go with the Starlink, it gets affected by the weather, harsh weather, severe weather. Sometimes upload link can take a long time and disrupt it a couple times. But considering the future launch of satellites, it's expected to be decreasing. The previous way that we have within our networks through the internet that they used to work, especially when I was in 2021 and 2020 within the Arctic regions, it used to be about 1200 and they had a lot of data, which part of it to be used, which is interesting because this new connectivity within the Arctic, it's very new. We're talking about some connectivity of a cheap internet that literally didn't exist. If you go to a lot of remote communities or above the Arctic and you talk with the people, a lot of them they have very limited access to the internet with maybe 3 gigabytes of internet per month. And that's up to 2021, 2022, 2023, very recent that we talk. So all these new accesses that they can have medical doctor, virtual medical doctor, they could get access to virtual care or education and many others that I explained in my presentation are new to the communities and very cybersecurity vulnerable because it's direct satellites through some infrastructures that exist there. So good touch, yes.
Yeah, that's good. Anyone else have any questions? I can ask some more since we got time. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the North, not only and the thing, is it Iceland there or Greenland? Yeah, I think it also quite close to it's in
Mm,
the Arctic there. And I know Canada also, like, basically if you draw a circle, it's roughly the same from the North Pole. And I think the difference is, I think US at that time interested is because if we don't have the connectivity, we cannot monitor, the incoming whatever missile projectile. That's the difference between 55 minutes window compared to 3 minutes window if they don't have any monitoring up there.
mm.
So, yeah, to 3 minutes window to make decision, to press a button or not to cause World War III is very different, right? So
Exactly.
that's how critical it is.
And cybersecurity sabotage is becoming more intense because we know when it comes to the cybersecurity, one is in the cyber. So here we could have a mix one of them, physical and cyber. Historically, there wasn't much habitat and much people who living here, but as a statistic and as I briefly explained, since 1980s to 2024, the size of Argentina has already melted. So there's a land that you could walk there now. We're talking by
No.
2030 to 2035, if you come to the Arctic region, it's summer ice free. There will be no ice. So you will have, and we will see more sophisticated cyber attacks and cyber jammings. So these are important, and as well as cyber literacy. So for water facilities, for energy consumption, a lot of power grids that are in North. In Labrador, we have Churchill Falls, huge projects that are happening and been in the past. And if you're following the news over the horizons, new
Mhm.
radar technology can then detect the launch from the. So a lot of them are building within the Arctic and subarctic region, North Ontario. One is coming here within the Labrador region. So cybersecurity at this level is very important for the region here.
Mhm. And that place, Salvabad, I mean, up north, I think it's the most northern cities. You have many countries there now, right? Because there's no visa required because of the agreement that you mentioned. There, yeah, I noticed a lot of countries already have establishment. Obviously, it's not meant to be a military base, but you don't know who has what, right? So
Exactly.
we're up there.
And it's interesting because logistic of it and the location of it is one of the perfect locations if you want to launch some of the satellites. In case any war happens, you want to launch the satellites down to disconnect this connectivity. And this place is one of the best locations on Earth.
Yeah. We have a question from Francis.
Sure.
Will you consider Starlink as risk? And does Canada need its own Starlink? Do you think we need our
Well,
own satellite system?
oh,
I say yes.
definitely.
No.
Definitely. Well, data sovereignty, I touch a lot of things to try to be brief. Data sovereignty is important. Any data that goes to the satellite, well, I assume they could be able to take a copy of it. And if I get a control over it, who gets the control? The way I see it, when you see through the satellites, well, we had a partnership that we could rely on it for a long time until recently that we could see the conflicts. Now, there's two discussion. Is it feasible within the current system that is in place? What is practical? Feasible, yes, it's feasible. Canada, if you follow the news, we recently launched two new space satellites. I believe one was in Alberta actually, and one was here with Memorial University that they postponed it for bad weather. Maybe one was in Ontario. So you could see this initiative started that countries are starting to understand why it's important to have connectivity in remote areas and how satellites can help it. Now, back to your question, is Starlink a threat here or is it adversary? So depends where we use it. We used to have a partner that we could rely on it. Now we say, okay, a lot of data that is gathered, we rely on someone, third party, that we don't know if they give us a hand or if they don't give us a hand in case of a conflict or anything happens. So uh, I think rule of security would says you should be in control when it comes to critical infrastructure such as satellites here that is vital and important to secure the north. So let me know if I answered this question. And this is actually the future is becoming because as we walk through 6G, we walk through interconnectivity, more connectivity. You will have autonomous fleet. You will have more ships that they are connecting and going through the North Sea routes instead of going around the planet. You will see a lot of mines and critical minerals. So a lot of these will be integrated and connected to the connectivity of the satellite that you may rely on a third party. Not only they gather your info and your data of what's happening, but you also rely on their services to provide it to you. So absolutely, I believe Canada needs to plan long term, and I do believe there's plan long term for Canada to become totally independent in that
Yeah,
long term.
Francis asked that question in the chat, and he give you a thumbs up, and yes, and he said thank you. So you see, yeah, look at the chat. So yeah, any other question? Let me see if anyone else give you other one a chance. If you want, you can just unmute and just ask question. You don't have to put it in the chat. Just interrupt. That's fine. Um, another, yeah, I'm just gonna keep asking just until someone interrupt. So just wondering, you know how during the war, U.S. will use the, like the indigenous people, like the wind
Mhm.
talker kind of stuff. Do you
Mhm.
think we can leverage something like that in the north with all the indigenous languages
Oh, that's a
as
very good.
code? Just wondering.
A couple of things you touched very well. So I want to give an example for Happy Valley Gooseway. So Happy Valley Gooseway in Labrador during the Cold War, when the Cold War started, we need to have a new route that the bomber airplanes that they were flying going to the Germany, they could be a shortest route, fly safe fuel, so they could bomber more back and forth. They wanted to make a military base, and they chose in Labrador, but they didn't know which location to go because they need to know according to the wind, like for the takeoff and landing is vital, which location is good. So the US came to Canada when Labrador. They said, okay, we need to have collaboration with Indigenous. They talk with the people, knowledge holder of the communities. What's the location? We're looking for, say, they said based on our observation of the goose that flying. So Happy Valley
Oh,
Gooseway. This is the perfect location. So you can see an example of the perfect example. They established the base and they built in collaboration with Indigenous, I think in 90 days. It's interesting because one of the space shuttles that it was launched during the Cold War to the space was launched from here. In
oh,
more surprisingly interesting, during even 9/11 attack, a lot of flights uh, changed the direct and landed here, which become to the news and hospitality of the people here. Also during Cold War, we know that there were nuclear weapons that they were stored within the region. Recently, we have F-35s that they're maneuvering for the. So you could see collaborative, successful stories within the indigenous knowledge holders. Now, why this is important? A lot of the changes I'm learning through Labrador and in collaboration with indigenous knowledge holders, they could see the land changes firsthand within the knowledge. They could see within the animal change, landscape, way more accurately and very more predictively than the current system that we have in place. So collaboration together would increase the success of any project that could happen. So that's one of the example that have been successful examples within the military collaborations for a purpose within the indigenous.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a question from Francis, but I would like to mention a comment from Nolan. He's actually online right now. He said, yeah, Mehrdad, thank you for a very thoughtful presentation. Please continue advancing your research and the development of LLMs and promoting cybersecurity risk in the context of Arctic and subarctic region, which often receive less public attention. So he's online right now, Nolan. So if you want to comment, and then we have Francis who can, yeah, go ahead with your questions.
Oh, thank you, Noah. I want to add something. Yes, it's important, and I want to bring cybersecurity. So this cybersecurity is very specific cybersecurity address and attack here and prospective, so people can see what's happening to the region and why it's becoming more important. Another cybersecurity I want to touch on it, and it's is people who are using internet services. So a lot of population here in the north, elder people, indigenous population, their lack. So overall, in Canada, we know there's lack of cybersecurity literacy among our citizens in the country. Whenever it comes to the Arctic and subarctic, multiply that by 10 at least, you will face what's happening here. There's a lot to be worked. Why? Because a lot of seniors, a lot of people who living in the community, we need to show respect and caring within the community by increasing the literacy. How do they secure the data when they do online banking? What are the protocols they need to think of when they use, as I mentioned, high connectivity and cheap internet is relatively new to the communities. So these communities are a perfect target for cyber activists who intend for malicious attack or taking uh, using advantages of this lack of literacy. So there are a lot of work to be done, and I look forward to anyone in this realm who has some services to offer here. We could connect within the communities, bring the knowledge to the communities, build trust. Trust is something need work and to be built. So these are something that we needed as we expand to the future.
So regarding the supply chain, I know the region, like, is there like a lot of drone companies there now trying to supply the region? Because I know that's the IoT part. There was talk about we need to secure IoT as well. So that's
Yes, absolutely. That's correct. Actually, I think I was reading in the news, Finland and Norway, they're putting a lot of drone fleets that they fly, drone patrols. So we also need within Canada. So if you're working and drones, there's a drone connectivity within the internet for the 6G. I met some students at the University of Ottawa and Alberta actually they're working with this domain. Some of them they're working with the cybersecurity of the drone communications in case someone was hijacked. So there's a lot of different fields. So if someone's working in the cybersecurity within the drones, within these fields of industry, so there's definitely a lot that could be done here.
thank you. That answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else have any other question, comment,
Hi,
jokes?
this is Satish here. I just want to check with on this particular topic about the governance side. I just want to know, is there any Arctic specific cybersecurity framework or some national policy guiding the operations there in the Arctic regions?
Well, there are reports that you could get access to for the operation that happens with the Arctic within the national defense. So if you go within the national defense website, there are reports that bring the military operations that's happening there. Recently, there's call for proposals. As I mentioned, if you, for example, with a drone, there's a call for proposals, I think for about 1 billion for the next 5 years for securing the north and putting budget to the Carney government announced and for infrastructure and security wise of it. So you saw a lot of radar cities that I showed, infrastructures that I showed. If there's and so when we talk about cyber security, because different layers, we have physical security for cyber security system, routers, modems, a lot of them fundamentally their design it changed when we talk about minus 40 and wind blows with 80 kilometer an hour. So if you have a company that can make sophisticated physical devices for cybersecurity, there's a lot of programs and military programs that you could apply for them, as well as you could see what are the current projects that happens with national defense. Within there are some other subarctic and Arctic groups that you could follow there, and you could see some of the current activities that happens there. Recently, there was within the NATO because Ukraine, I think there was a drone attack with Ukraine. Some of the Russian bases that they hold nuclear weapons or a lot of other hypersonic missiles here because it's strategic. If you look through the map, the only way that Russia can hit the US is through this reason, launching the missiles. Now Ukraine hit some of those sites, and you could follow those news and trends within the reports that's available online. So I hope this answered your question. If some operation, if you have more specific in which domain you want to follow, let me know so I can direct you with the
Thank you.
message.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. I think there's two more in the chat.
No, I
Yes.
just put some link
Oh,
in the
thank you,
chat.
Vincent.
So one
Yes.
for the Canadian government, talk about state. The other one is another group, Unified in Canada. And then you guys are asking about, I put the website for some of the funding. Some of you guys maybe have your own business. Yeah, you can do. I mean, we all live in Canada, so it's always good. It doesn't matter who it is. Contribute. If you want to know more, I'm pretty sure they can reach out to you. Yeah. And yeah, if you have your email, whatever, put in the chat, feel free to put in the chat so they can always copy it. If not, they can always look in the program and your LinkedIn. I believe your LinkedIn and your email address are in the program.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Mehrdad, for your wonderful presentation. Basically, so his email is in the chat. If you guys want, you can copy it down. What I'm just gonna stop the video recording. Then you guys, if you have something personal, you can ask him. Just want to officially thank you,
Thank
for
you.
your wonderful presentation. Okay, and you will find it on the YouTube channel if you cannot remember on the ISC2 Alberta. Okay, thank you very much. You can stay put. Yeah.